Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, and today we're going to be discussing Joe Biden's top, 12 picks for the 2020 Democratic vice presidential nomination, assuming that Joe Biden does go ahead and win the primary, which it looks like he's on track to do. A lot of news media companies are calling him the presumptive nominee, which I can understand can be misleading, but at the same time, it looks like Joe Biden's lead over Bernie Sanders is insurmountable. But that's a whole discussion for another video. Essentially, we're just going to be discussing who will be Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. And in 2016, a lot of pundits were incorrect when they predicted that Julian Castro would end up being the nominee for vice president against Donald Trump, and it ended up being Tim Kaine. But Politico put a list, I believe, yesterday morning about the top 12 running mates and how they would personally rank them. So I'm not going to rank these candidates personally. I'm just going to discuss the possibility of each individual one, starting off with Stacey Abrams and ending off with Kamala Harris, and pretty much just discuss the pros and cons about having each individual vice presidential nom on the ticket for Vice President Biden. So pretty much, face value, Stacey Abrams seems like a very reasonable candidate. She's new. She was liked in 2018, and she could help the Democrats. Discord seems pretty loud real quick. But she could help the Democrats actually win in an area that they otherwise wouldn't be competitive in. She could bring out more African-American voters based off the fact that she is an African-American woman. And she did do well in the Georgia governor election in 2018. She did not win, but then again, it is a Republican state, and it has slowly taken more steps into voting for the Democrats at a presidential level. So, Georgia, how crucial would Georgia be in a presidential election? Assuming that Joe Biden does end up winning the Rust Belt, he really only needs to hold on to Nevada and Colorado, which pretty much can already be assumed. But let's say Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are Trump country, and Trump wins in Iowa and Ohio and Arizona, even Florida. Well, if he does win in North Carolina, he wins the election. But let's say for some reason Georgia goes blue and North Carolina goes blue. Not realistic whatsoever, but it is possible that these two do go blue if Stacey Abrams is at the top of the ticket. Keep in mind, we're talking about someone that can definitely appeal to African-American voters, and when every single vote counts in this election, maybe Stacey Abrams could be the right pick. But like this says, she is an underqualified vice president. She doesn't necessarily have the best political track record in terms of elections, and also lack of political experience. The main reason why Joe Biden is doing so well is because he will be ready day one once he hits the White House. And this whole age argument too, they're going to want a vice presidential nom that definitely could be taking over in the case that Joe Biden is unfit to serve as president. But Stacey Abrams, I still think, is going to be way higher ranked than number 12 out of 12 for the Joe Biden camp, but I do not think that she will actually be the VP. Elizabeth Warren, same deal. I don't think she will be the vice presidential candidate. It is a smart idea considering that you could bring over a number of progressive candidates that way, just because they would be a little bit more sure with Warren talking into the ear of Biden if he does win the presidency. But at the same time, she didn't endorse anyone this primary so far. She didn't endorse Bernie Sanders. She didn't endorse Joe Biden. But it may not work well together. We're talking about a candidate that isn't exactly as inspirational as Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden on his own, sure, he's bringing out voters in droves. I mean, he is driving up turnout, but I wouldn't exactly say he's the most excitable candidate. When we're talking about a charismatic campaign, you would need an Obama at the top of the ticket, or a Clinton. As much as many people didn't like her, she definitely was enthusiastic. She may not have brought out as biggest crowds as Bernie Sanders, but she definitely had way more charisma than we're seeing now amongst the 2020 candidates. And Joe Biden, I don't think, will necessarily have two. Yes, his personality is definitely appealing to the American people, but again, I just don't think that he's going to have the best energy behind him moving ahead into the general election rallies. But I don't think Warren is that candidate either. She will bring over some progressive candidates, which is progressive votes, which is why I think that she is definitely a top name. But after running such a important campaign, it's not likely that they actually choose Elizabeth Warren to be the VP. Susan Rice, I think this is an interesting one. I didn't even think about this one at all. She served under Barack Obama, same thing as Joe Biden, and for the same exact amount of times. She would be a smart choice for the Democrats. She is an African-American woman. But again, they might hit her on the same things that they hit Hillary Clinton with, which wouldn't exactly be the hardest thing to do. People already don't like Hillary Clinton, and anyone tied to that directly would definitely be a huge hit to the campaign. But she does have the experience. I do think that will definitely help the campaign if she is to jump on, because it would just be a doubly experienced campaign that there wouldn't be any political newcomers per se. But maybe not. She does seem strong face value, but again, no necessarily electoral advantage by Elizabeth Warren or Susan Rice either, which is why it may not be the best choice for Joe Biden. Moving over to Laura Kelly, she won the 2018 governor race in Kansas. Unfortunately, I don't think that Kansas is going to be, unfortunately for Laura Kelly, I don't think that Kansas is going to be a top pick for 2020 Dems to focus their energy on. It's 6 electoral votes, and it's a solid Republican state. But it is possible that they do consider her, but I just don't see Laura Kelly. Keep in mind, Biden can win the Rust Belt on his own. He's proven that in terms of turnout amongst Democratic primary voters in areas that weren't turning out whatsoever, driving it up in the South, in the Midwest. It's just doing something that the Bernie campaign really said that they would be able to do. Unfortunately for them, it looks like Joe Biden is the candidate bringing out voters more, just based off of the actual facts and numbers. But I don't think Laura Kelly would offer too much of an electoral advantage as well either. To be honest, she's fairly new to being known nationwide. She's a Kansas governor. I think just recently made a headline for canceling all school throughout the rest of the year. Gretchen Whitmer, a lot of people have been discussing her. Michigan's pretty much a safe bet for Joe Biden at this point, but I don't think that's the only reason he would want her on the campaign. She's a very fiery type candidate. She beat a progressive in Abdul Al-Sayed, I think, in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that she could be good in terms of flipping the Rust Belt. But if Joe Biden, again, like I said, he most likely has a hold on the Rust Belt as of right now, it doesn't look like he's going to need a Rust Belt candidate. Though Gretchen Whitmer could be a notable one, considering how much she did for him in Michigan itself. But she also did say that she wouldn't be the Democratic nominee for vice president. She also said that in an interview. So most likely won't be her. Val Demings, we haven't seen too many representatives hold office in terms of near the presidency. National Brahmins, after serving as the House impeachment manager, I really think that would just polarize the race itself. A lot of people already disagree with the impeachment. It's about split even, and you're going to need more than just split even in order to win the election. I don't think that's going to be the best thing for the Democrats, and it's also her third year in the House. I wouldn't necessarily say that one's even in the running. Michelle, I think Grisham, she's New Mexico's new governor. She only Latina governor in the country. New Mexico is not up for grabs for the Trump campaign. I don't know why they mentioned that down here. I don't think that she would be necessarily the worst pick either, though. She is a Hispanic woman. Obviously, Biden's VP is going to be a woman, but that could make states like Arizona easier to grab, states like New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada solid. So if Biden has the Rust Belt locked down and they have this area locked down, the only thing to focus on is the South, and she would definitely help with Florida. But we wouldn't really be seeing that African-American support other than the Obama coalition. But then again, that wasn't even strong enough to flip North Carolina or Georgia in 2012. So really all depends. But I do think that she is a pretty good name to run with Joe Biden, just she doesn't have as much national attention as people might like. Catherine Cortez Masto, she is interesting. She's from Nevada, won in 2016 after Harry Reid retired. One of, I think, 2 pickups in the Senate that year. She is a pretty strong candidate. Again, same type of appeal as Governor Grisham, but at the same time, maybe not now. I think the Democrats definitely have a hold on Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada, to be completely honest. Arizona is the only one that's going to be focused on. I really think that the way that this Biden campaign can truly win is by driving up African-American turnout. Again, they're probably not going to win Florida, but it is a real possibility that they do win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, possibly even North Carolina. We're talking about an Obama-type candidate with Biden at the top of the ticket, and then if you throw in an African-American woman at the bottom, not the bottom, I guess the next step down, that would completely bring out minority votes in general. Maybe not necessarily Latino voters, but when we're talking about who would be better in terms of winning a more electoral college advantage, Florida's probably a lost cause anyway at this point. I understand that there's whole discussion about the Democrats possibly winning in Florida. As of right now, it still looks like Trump is somehow holding on to the base that got him elected in the first place down in Florida. But for Arizona, Arizona's definitely possible for the Biden campaign, even without a Latina VP. I think it would just make it a lot easier. But I do think that North Carolina and Georgia are definitely areas that the Biden campaign is going to be focusing on. Catherine Cortez Masto, she's not exactly the most exciting person to run on the candidate list, too. She offers a mild electoral advantage in Florida and Arizona, but not so much in Florida. But it really just all depends on who would offer, number one, a better electoral advantage and be better at the bottom of the ticket. Who could fill in that presidential spot if something was to happen to Vice President Biden, which really is just, I guess, claims about his health or his age that people are worried about, which is why they would prefer a younger candidate, someone that can appeal to the Bernie voters. And if you take a look at the exit poll data, I think 11% of Bernie supporters said they would not vote for Joe Biden if he was the nominee. Very interesting. But if the Democrats are running up the numbers everywhere, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But that's also not the point of this video. Tammy Duckworth and Tammy Baldwin and Amy Klobuchar, those are three candidates technically from around the same area: Illinois, Wisconsin, and I believe Wisconsin. Tammy Duckworth, Tammy Baldwin, Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota. So these three states, all connected and all likely Democratic states for the 2020 election. Tammy Duckworth, number one, I think she would be an amazing candidate. She's a veteran. She definitely could be better for those candidates, those voters that are Republican lights, meaning that they voted for Trump out of reluctance and just didn't like Hillary Clinton, but are open-minded as to who they would vote for in 2020. There aren't that many, but it definitely could sway the election if it does come down to being less than 1% as it did in 2016. I do not think that's how the election will go, especially with this COVID-19 thing definitely going to impact the 2020 election, especially with a possible recession heading up. Tammy Duckworth, I think, is definitely a top pick. I would actually rank her in top 3 for me, maybe number 3, actually. I don't know. I think that she would be number 3. As for my number 2, I'm thinking Amy Klobuchar. She definitely landed Biden a victory in Minnesota, which was crucial to his Super Tuesday victories. It showed that Biden could win in the Rust Belt, where Bernie Sanders, that was his appeal. He won there in 2016, which is why Hillary Clinton didn't win in 2016, because they didn't vote for her in the primary other than the state of Pennsylvania. And I don't think that argument's going to work this time around, especially with Biden winning in Minnesota. In Michigan, looks like he's on track to win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Ohio. Just won Illinois. So it really just all depends on the dynamics. I do think that Amy Klobuchar would offer a very, very good addition to the campaign. She's great at campaigning. Maybe not, again, the most excitable candidate, but the Rust Belt I already think is solidified, so I don't think that they need to double down on that. But if they want to be sure that they're going to be winning those 3 states and just want an outright victory, I honestly think Biden is going to go for the electoral prize here. I don't think he's going to miss the Rust Belt, though. I do think that the Democrats are going to actually remember it this time. Tammy Baldwin, same type of deal, reelected in the Senate in 2018, was mildly popular in the state of Wisconsin, did win by a pretty good margin. But again, the Rust Belt may not be the only focus of the Democratic Party at this point, which brings me to Politico's last pick of Senator Kamala Harris. The only issue I see with Senator Harris is that they could use her own words from the first Democratic primary debate against her. And if she's able to dispute that, then I honestly think that the Biden campaign will jump over to Senator Harris. She does not offer necessarily a regional advantage in terms of California. It's a safe Democratic state. But if you talk about Kamala Harris as an African-American woman, black woman as a VP nom, she would be a pretty strong candidate in terms of bringing out minorities. But then again, her history as Attorney General could be bashed, but I don't think that the Republicans are going to attack her. I think the only ones that could actually make that case that they would be better for the way that they would handle criminal justice and everything would definitely be the Democrats, which would only be a thing in the primary, because I do not think that the Republican Party is going to want to say that they would go easier than she did, per se. But anything's fair game in the general election. So my top 3 picks are probably number 1, Senator Harris, number 2, I guess Amy Klobuchar, and then number 3 would be Harris. I mean, yes, she's a strong candidate, sorry. Not running anymore. Yeah, maybe I would just stick with my original picks. I I mean, Harris, it was just such a big deal that she crossed over, mainly because she was one of the first notable attack men on to Joe Biden in this campaign. But it looks like she actually might offer an advantage as we move into the election. If you discussed Hillary Clinton attacking Barack Obama, sure, she wasn't on his campaign a lot in 2008, but nominating her for Secretary of State definitely was like a huge thing just because of how much of a battle they had between the primary. I think that Kamala Harris incident was really only a little bit of an altercation compared to what's going on between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden right now. And then she did walk back those comments later on at later debates. So other than that, I think that this is going to be a very interesting primary leading on. I do think that Bernie Sanders is going to end up staying in the race. But going into the general election, it is very likely that we do have a female vice president unless Joe Biden changes his mind. Obviously, that would assume that Joe Biden wins the election, but it is possible that we do make history at the end of this election. Just especially looking at the numbers right now, Donald Trump's approval rating is definitely going to hit its low point yet again, just because of the way that this whole coronavirus thing is being handled. Not personally saying I agree or disagree with the way that he's handling it, but the American public definitely is not receiving it well. But other than that, make sure you guys do go ahead and stay safe, wash your hands, stay inside, everything. I think it's like day, 5, 6 or something of staying isolated. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.